Hi guys, welcome to a tutorial video on Magic the Gathering. Now, I am specifically on Magic the Gathering Arena right now, but this still applies to the card version, and I'm doing this on PC. You can do this on phone, iPad, and it works on most of them, although not quite all phones, I don't think, but we'll see. So today, I'm going to teach you how to deck build. As you can see, I've done a decent bit of it, and there's a few important things just to get right that results in not having these illegal decks with all these illegal cards. But I'll just get right into it. So, principle number one with building the deck is to have a strategy that is common within the deck. So, let's just go for a flying deck. Say I'm going to build a flying deck. Now, to help get these specific things that we want to do, we can go to the search bar here and simply type in what we want to be good at and search. And search. Yep, here we go. So this should give us all creatures and spells that you have that either have flying or grant flying. I have quite a few, as we can see. Right, so second principle is the colour balance. This here is all cards that have or grant flying, like all of them, any colour. What we then want to do is we want to narrow it down. So, see which one's pretty common. There's quite a lot of water flying, I think. But we'll go blue, black, white. Now this is a triple colour deck. They're quite rare. I don't really run them. I have a few, but they're mainly for fun in terms of when I'm actually wanting to competing. I run a mono most of the time, meaning there's only one type of mana colour. This is a triple, so there's three. I wouldn't advise using those for competitions, but this is just an example, so we're okay for that. But, could easily go just blue and black, run a duo, or we could just do black, or we could just do blue. Some of you might have noticed that we have the light monster here. When using this specific search function, you do need to be careful, because it'll show up anything involving just either of those colours. So as we see, we've got a black Phyrexian mana, which puts this light card into the black category. But just keep an eye out for this, because this is not a black card, and it's not something you'll want to be using in that mono style deck. But we'll go for a mono blue, because have quite a few blues. Next important thing is balance between your card types. So let's just stick in some of these creatures. Now, let's look at Waterkin Shaman. Whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, Waterkin Shaman gets +1/+1 until end of turn. This does not really apply very well in my strategy, because I want creatures that can fly. Again, just searching flying into the bar will give people like Waterkin Shaman that say they don't have flying, but when something with flying enters, they gain a buff. Now, you might want this in your thing, but with this strategy here, I just want ones with flying. So these handy shortcuts here can add or remove, so we just get rid of him. Let's just see. So far, I've got all creatures apart from 1 instant and then the 24 land. Now, I find that when balancing these card types out, you want certain ratios. And I'll put these ratios down in the video description so you can access them when you like. But general ratios I find is that for land, you want your ratio of land to total cards to be, I find, around 27 to 28 to 60. So 27 or 28 land cards per 60 cards in your deck. As you can see, this deck building function in the game automatically gives you 24. I find, for my purposes, you might have a different opinion, obviously test this out, find what you like. I find that to be a little too low and the land draw count isn't quite high enough. So I'm just going to buff that up to 28. And experiment around with these numbers, find what you like. And then that leaves us with 32 or 33 other cards that we're going to want in our 60 card deck. So I would say that out of your 32 to 33 cards, roughly 1/3 to a half of them want to be instants, sorceries, enchantments. So for spells, you want your ratio to be about 10 to 16, 10 to 17 probably, we'll give some leeway, to be about 10 to 17 per 60 card deck. Again, I'll put these down in the video description so you can see them. So then, that leaves you with an approximate creature count of 15 to 23 creatures per 60 card deck. I err more on the side of the 20s than the 15 or so, but again, personal preference. And these ratios can shift based on how you want to, what type of deck you want to run. This is a flying deck, so probably going to be more heavy on the creature side of things than the spell side of things. However, if you're doing maybe a red aggro, you're maybe going to want a few more spells. Or if you're doing a green tank, you're going to want a few less. And of course these things move around. So the most balanced one is probably black, but again, personal preference. So if we just do a count, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 creatures. So we'll go for the 23 here. So that leaves us with 11 to go. 8 to go. 6 to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is obviously, I've obviously gone through very quickly and just added some cards without really thinking or looking at the actual cards that I'm going with. However, if we were to do this in actual practice, you can see most of the cards I've taken are really low value stats, but they're also really cheap. So this would be my take on a water flying aggro. But obviously we've got some things like the Quicksilver Fisher have some higher stats, and I guess Menildor. But, you know, these are some cheap fast ones. Now, just having these would be quite bad. You're not going to really be able to hit much. So, once we've got some primary cheap ones in, we can maybe get rid of some, and then we'll get rid of a Trawler Drake to add a Soulblade Djinn and a Riddlemaster Sphinx. Then you can, as you can see here, all the mana values of these different things. I think it's typically sorted in order of mana value, although this doesn't always happen. But this is sort of like a common thing. We can then see, it's like the numbers of a certain card that you have in your deck. Depends on how often you want to really be drawing that card. Because like I only have one Aspirant Ascent, but that means I have a 1 in 60 chance of drawing that card. Whereas if we say take the Warden of Evos Isle, I have 3. That gives me a 3 in 60 chance of drawing that card, or to be a bit more specific, 1 in 20. So if you have a 1 that's a card that you want in there because it's good, but you're not really too fussed about drawing it. A 2 is one that, you know, it's pretty good. You want a decent chance of drawing it, but you don't want it to take up your draws. A 3, like my Cloudkin Seer, is one that you really want to be drawing pretty well, but you're still careful of not having too many. I haven't got any 4s in here, but 4 is one that you want to be drawing every single game without fail. Non-stop. And it's also important to look at not just these things, but also its extra effects here. When it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 other target creature you control to its owner's hand. If it was a soldier, put a +1/+1 counter on Zephyr Sentinel. This, quite useful. It means you can get rid of the creatures. However, this is a flight deck. I'm not too concerned about getting rid of the creatures because I'm not concerned with them anyway. So we'll keep 1, but then we add maybe another Riddlemaster Sphinx, albeit it has the same effect. But it's better, because it has better stats. And, where is it? Yeah, it's more expensive, but who cares? Actually, it's quite an important thing with deck building, to make sure you have a good balance between these cheap, easy ones and these expensive build ones. So, quite a lot of people care, but for these purposes, the point gets across. Now, whenever a creature with flying attacks, you may draw a card. This is extremely powerful in this flight deck, because if you have more cards than your opponent, you have more chance to play good things. So this tutor effect of the card, of drawing more cards, it's really, really powerful. It's one of the strengths of water, which is quite useful. So I'm going to add that, and we can, because we're going quite expensive here, we can get rid of the Soulblade Djinn, because it's a creature-based deck. I'm not necessarily going to have a lot of these. Oh, let's just quickly do this. So whenever you make a deck in this digital version, you need to choose a format for it. I typically like to go for Historic, because it's more fun. There is Standard, which is your sort of competition, has quite a lot of banned cards, and you can only use cards from the last 3 years. I'm just going to go Historic, because it's more fun. As you can see, it tells us how many cards we have. I think we've probably gone a little bit on the creatures, and we haven't got enough room for 10 spells, because there's our spell there. I don't think any of these are spells, but that's not too much of a problem. Like I say, these ratios are pretty flexible, so it doesn't matter too much. So we now just need some spells. Have a look at this saga. Now, spells aren't too great when it comes to flying, but things like these enchantments, sagas, are quite useful in that a fair few sagas transform into something, and that something has flying. This is like an instant that keeps on going each turn you go. So we'll chuck in a couple of those. For now, we'll just go into... Now, this is advanced filters, and you can use it to help change. Because I've got a lot of cheap things, let's go 2+. Yeah, we want it to be format legal. And type, select type here. We want instants, sorceries, and enchantments. And need to be water. Again, watch out for this. He's not a water monster, so we don't want him. Although, he'll be pretty useful in a few light decks. Disdainful Stroke. Counter target spell with mana value 4 or greater. Not that helpful in this flight deck. And mana value 4 or greater, you don't get many. Most of these instants and spells are quite cheap. But we'll go for a couple more sagas. They can be really quite useful here. We'll just have a look at this one. Create a curse roll token attached to up to one target creature. Pretty useful if the opponent has counter flying monsters. Also means that when I block, less likely to die. It's a flying deck, so not quite as prominent as it might be ordinarily, but doesn't mean it's not useful. Scry 2. Look at the top 2 cards of your library, then put any number of them on the bottom of your library, and then the rest on top in any order. Quite useful, gives you some idea of what you've got coming next, can give you a strategic advantage. You know what's coming, so you can start to manipulate towards that. I don't find it that helpful, but some people have decks built on scrying, so each to their own. And when you next cast an instant or sorcery spell with mana value 3 or less this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Not that useful for this strategy, to be honest. I don't have many in here, but I need to make up the numbers. Like I said, this is just an example. If I was doing this as an actual deck build, I probably wouldn't include this card. So I'm just going to take advice out of my own here, and we'll just get rid of it. It's not that helpful. Always important to make sure that you look at this and work out whether or not it's useful to your strategy. Let's take a look at change the equation. Choose 1. Counter target spell with mana value 2 or less. Or counter target red or green spell with mana value 6 or less. It's countering spells. Not helpful to this strategy on the whole. Look at the top 3 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. Proliferate. This is not really a counter deck, so proliferation is not going to be that helpful to me. Proliferation is choose any number of players or permanents and then give each of those another counter of each kind already there. Let's have a look. What else do we have? Glimpse of Freedom, draw a card, and it has the Escape. Escape means that you can cast a card from your graveyard from the cost that it lists on the card. So for 1 extra mana, I can play it again, but I have to exile 5 other cards. It's a bit pricey, and no one says I have to use this, but the tutor effect, very useful. Like I say, water is good at tutor, and this tutor effect, it's useful no matter what strategy you're running, because every strategy requires you to get cards. Impede momentum. While not hugely specific to this strategy of flight, it's still a really useful, really helpful card. And, you know, if I come up against, say, a fire deck with these big tanky dragons that can do some serious damage to me and, like, one-shot my flying monsters, then this could be really helpful in a pinch. So we're just going to put 1 in, because it's not one of those where we want to be drawing it all the time, but it's, like, a just in case we have it. Let's see. Eye of Gitaxias. Incubate 3, draw a card. Tutor effect, very useful, and as the incubate. If you don't know what incubate means, it's create an incubator token with 3 +1/+1 counters on it, and then if you pay 2 mana of any colour, it transforms into a 0/0 Phyrexian artifact creature. So if we're incubating 3, it has 3 +1/+1 counters on it, so the Phyrexian that we then have would be +3/+3. So let's just add 3 of those, because we've got the tutor, and incubate is never unhelpful. And now we have 60 cards. I have some card styles for Cloudkin Seer, I think it is, so we'll just apply some card styles just so it's looking a bit more fancy. And one of the last things you want to do is change this. So if you drag a card to that area over there, you can change the image of the cards. Now I'm going to use Winged Words as my cover there. Now we'll just take a look over here. This is a general summary of your deck. Tells me here I have 28 land cards and 32 other cards, and they're 100% water. I have 21 creatures and 11 non-creatures, hitting these sorts of boundaries that we want to be at. And this here tells me the cost of these cards, showing me in a general spectrum how this deck is. This is what we like to see, some nice cheap with some expensive. Now this deck is erring on the side of cheap. Maybe you want to see a little more of those expensive ones because they tend to be heavier hitters. They deal more damage, which ultimately is the aim. But I think for this it's okay. I've got my Frostcup Companion. We'll just change the avatar for this one. We'll go with Jace because he looks cool. And then we'll apply Jace sleeve. We're looking all complementary here. And these are our stats here. We've got 21 creatures. They tell us the type here as well, because some cards refer to specific card types, being able to target them, not being able to target them, strengthening them, those sorts of things. And we have some numbers here. 3 instants, 6 sorceries, artifacts, enchantments, and land. So, we just give the deck a name. Mono blue flight deck. And then just gonna click done. And there we have it. Mono blue flight deck. So that's it for today, guys. That is a deck building tutorial. If you want to see this deck in a battle against someone else, put down in the comments any other deck builds you want to see. Tell me. I've got a mono red aggro deck build that I want to do. If you want to see that, let me know. If you like the video, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Goodbye.